I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? That's what brings you here? Yeah?
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Jesse. That's it?
I'm an addict.
Yeah. Sure, great. Not my question. But thank you for letting us all know why you're here. Well, we're all addicts in some way.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
So try something new.
Yeah.
Sure.
How's the old way working?
No.
No, not so well. Glad you're here. Old way didn't work for me either, so. Yeah. What else?
My name's Eddie. I've been to the Sunday meetings, but
Yeah.
wanted to attend like a night one and get more familiar with the Buddhism.
Nice. You're welcome.
Really used to like to learn, so
Yeah. Glad you're here. Okay, thanks. What else? Who's here first time? A couple other hands, I think, somewhere. Now that I make you talk, you don't want to put your hands up. Come on. First time? There you go.
My name's Annie. Looking for some peace and calmness.
Yeah. Couldn't find it out there?
Yeah.
You know what was out there?
Do I know what was out there?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
You.
Yeah.
You know where you're going to find the peace?
Me?
Yeah. How's that make you feel?
Empowered?
Good. Most people say scared. So. Yeah, I'm glad you went with empowered. But I mean, that's it in the simplest way. Not that automatically means you're going to find it immediately. I mean, got a whole hour until you find it. But when you get you to leave here in the next hour with finding peace, then that's phenomenal, right? You don't even have to come back. But that's the idea. So, I mean, almost everybody comes here because we're trying to get away from not everyone, but many people come here trying to get away from something, someone, the madness, the craziness, and everything. And it always just immediately, for everybody, remind us that, like, we are out there. We are the madness, right? There's that in Buddhism. You see a lot of examples around traffic, and the whole idea behind being in traffic, thinking that you hate traffic, but you are the traffic, right? So the madness, we are the madness. We are out there. But the question is, can we be at peace when we're out there? And so then we come to places and things and spiritual journeys and whatever it might be like this, and we ask ourselves, okay, well, I'm here, so I want to be at peace here. But then ultimately we're going to end up back out there, and then what? So, because you can't hide out here all day long. I mean, you could, but I'd give you way too much shit to do, and you'd probably quit and leave and run back to the madness. So, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here. Yeah. Anyone else looking for peace? None of you? 1, 2, and 3. All right. All right. So we'll start with a meditation practice. Those who might be sitting for the first time or here for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. If those joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to say hello. Somewhere on the screen is a chat box. And when we get to questions, you can put them there as well. But there's a comment here. As far as the voice, this is YouTube, so you don't need to mute it. That's only on Zoom. So you can really scream as loud as you'd like, and we still won't hear you. So don't worry about that. But before we begin, a couple things to tell you. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. You don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside the room. This is life. Life is sort of chaos. And this practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are in a cushion, often it helps slide to the front third. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the hands on the knees or lap, shoulders are relaxed. Pushing the stomach forward slightly allows the back to straighten. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means you need to move. And most important, especially if you're new, you're not going to shut your mind off, you won't think nothing, you won't go blank. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll say things periodically to wake you up because you've fallen asleep, or remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to present moment. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into silence. Starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed, whatever is comfortable. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, feel them fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from your practice. Just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet. Just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in, where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy, not necessarily fun, not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment, as we all know too well, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulties, challenges. This is life. This practice is learning to be with life as it arises, sitting with things as they happen. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. It's becoming aware in each moment of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. Because that's what creates your reality. We often think that everything out there is the cause of all of our problems. Everything out there is just something to experience. And we choose what and how we want to experience it. And that doesn't mean everything is wonderful. It's not. The world is a mess. But you don't have to be a mess. Just because everything else is a mess doesn't mean you have to be a mess. And most people miss that completely. Too wrapped up in what everybody else is thinking and saying and doing, and please do not ignore what other people are thinking and saying and doing. What other people think and say and do is important. It impacts our lives and the lives of those around us. But can we see all of that, observe all of that, and be with all of that without destroying ourselves? That's what this practice is. once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone else, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to everything else, life gets simpler. And then you can actually make a difference in the world without being angry and pissed off. Again, not easy, but that's the practice. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And again, to those who are joining virtually, glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. There's a chat box there on your screen. Feel free to say hello. If you have questions, you can put them there. And yeah, to respond to Mike, a comment earlier, with YouTube, there's no, you just see us. You don't even see us, you see me. But they're all out there. Take my word for it. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box. But yeah, a few other people commented you can't talk to us. We'll open up to questions. We'll use the rest of our brief time tonight for questions. Yeah.
So this practice is relatively new to me as I'm getting into it. And a few weeks ago on Saturday, you told your snail story.
Yeah.
And that's been rattling around in my head like a BB in a tin can.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a larger question, but I guess like what it brought up to me is, what is suffering? Because your suffering in that story, it's like your suffering could be my catharsis, and my peace could be your suffering dealing with like the snail. Like, are they suffering? Are they not? Is there like a universal like cosmology of suffering, or is suffering individualized? What is suffering?
Yeah, I'm just still thrilled with the fact that my snail story has you thinking for the last 3 weeks.
It's got me going.
That's all I really care about. I'm not even going to answer your question.
That's my suffering.
Yeah, that is your suffering. But that leads to what was your name? Sorry. David. That leads to really what my response was going to be, because your question, for those virtually didn't hear it, was around, to paraphrase and kind of sum up, what is suffering, to use your words exactly? Is it this universal suffering? Is it individual? And that snail story led you to, ponder this the last 3 weeks. In many ways, it's both. From my experience and when I look at Buddhist practice, but very specifically with Buddhist practice, the way I would respond to that question, which is very directly, it's individual. Now, my individual suffering, and I'll expand on that in a minute, obviously impacts the universal suffering, right? I mean, you have friends.
I hope so.
You're right. So friends, a loved one, a family member, whatever it might be. So if you are suffering, how does your suffering potentially impact all of them? In possibly a negative way. If you're really angry and pissed off and you go to talk to a friend and you're angry and pissed off, that's going to come across, and that will change the dynamic, potentially leading to suffering for the individual. You don't know that, but it's just an option, right? One example. Now, if you go to, friend, family member, loved one, whoever it is, and you're in a good mood, and you're in a happy mood, and you're not really suffering at that moment, there's maybe a better likelihood that interaction will be a little calmer, quieter, and peaceful, You ever been really pissed off in an argument? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. And as you remained pissed off in that argument and got more angry, did that ever make things better? No. Right? So your suffering, which in that moment was getting worse, made the situation worse. So that's where it's kind of this individual, which then goes out to this kind of universal, starting with immediate people around us, family, friends, communities, traffic, right, colleagues, and then expands from there throughout the rest of the world. But the reason I think that I, for me at least, as I sit with that, and still now, from the Buddhist perspective, really suffering is individual. Now the question is, what is suffering, right? So it comes from the word dukkha, which translates very often to suffering, but it's a very poor translation of the word suffering because it sounds so heavy, right? I mean, suffering, at least in the English language, sounds heavy and traumatic. And we do have heavy suffering and heavy trauma, death, loss, trauma. We experience a lot of that. But other words for dukkha or suffering, discomfort, angst, dis-ease, dissatisfaction, right? You like mayonnaise? Wrong answer. Who here hates mayonnaise? Have you heard the story?
No, sir.
Okay, Ross, you hate mayonnaise.
Yes.
Okay, you go to a deli. You order a sandwich. What do you tell them?
No mayo.
No mayo. You get your sandwich. There's mayo on it. How do you feel?
Frustrated.
Frustrated. That is also dukkha. It's not the end of the world. He's not going to die unless he's allergic to mayonnaise. But our entire day, now that you got the snail story, you can have the mayonnaise one stuck in your head for the next 3 weeks. I got lots, man. Don't worry. So the idea is that when we think of heavy trauma and suffering, we also think of just our food prepared the wrong way. We don't like the way somebody looked at us or said something to us. We don't like the way something turned out that's probably not a life-threatening situation. So suffering is experienced every day of our life. And in reality, I think, it's a generalization, but for most people, the heavy death, loss, extreme pain, extreme trauma is not happening every day, all day throughout our immediate lives. It's maybe happened and it will happen, but throughout our day, most of our suffering is the little things. And so that's what suffering is. And it's not about immediately fixing it. It's about recognizing it. That's the first noble truth of the Four Noble Truths. And the second one is the cause of suffering. And this is kind of where it really begins to kind of play out in mind and heart as a practice, is to recognize, what is my suffering? Where is my suffering happening throughout the day? Is it in conversations with family, with friends, with colleagues, with traffic? Where is my suffering? And then the second noble truth is the cause. And the cause is the greed. Wanting more, wanting different. Anger. We're just not happy the way things work. And ignorance. Meaning we're ignoring reality. Anyone want the world to work how you want it to work? Right? Well, that is your ignorance. You're ignoring that the world is never going to work how you want it to work. It's just going to work. I mean, that would be impossible, because every single person in this room wants the world to be different. And we're all stuck in our way. And everyone in this room has a different perception of reality. And we want our reality. So we're ignoring that there's an ultimate reality. It's not, ultimate reality or ultimate truth is not kind of a similar question or a similar way to think about things. It's not reality as taught or spoken by the Buddha. It's not like the Buddha was some god who said, this is ultimate truth, or this is ultimate reality. In essence, what he's saying is the opposite of that, that whatever you think is ultimate truth, and whatever you think is ultimate reality, is not ultimate truth or ultimate reality. He's not telling you what it is. He's just saying what you think, it's not that. And when we can realize that, that then leads to less suffering, because we're stuck. Sandwich comes, there's mayonnaise on it, you eat the sandwich. Much of our lives, if we just eat the sandwich, instead of arguing and fighting over little things, we would suffer less. So, yeah, hope that gets you through another few weeks. What else? Questions? Yeah.
What's the difference between fear and suffering?
So the question is, what's the difference between fear and suffering? Well, I mean, I think initially when I hear that, to me, when I look at Buddhist teachings, suffering is something we experience. Could be physical, could be mental, could be emotional, could be all three together, or a combination of them. And fear is often a cause of our suffering. Fear in and of itself is just a thought, right? That's all fear is. It's a thought. It then becomes a feeling, a sensation, a action, because when we're afraid of things, we either do or don't do certain things, right? Fear of things stop us, hinder us, get in our way, or maybe cause us to do things. But the fear in of itself initially is just a thought. And suffering is what occurs from our fear in various ways. So they're very different. One triggers the other. An acronym that I love for fear, false evidence, appearing real, FEAR. So we're afraid of something or someone, but it hasn't even happened. So many people are afraid of the future, but you know what? There's a chance that it might actually work out worse than what you're actually afraid of. And there's a chance that it might, believe it or not, work out better. But whatever you think the future is going to be like, it's going to be different. It could be better, it could be worse. We don't know, but it'll be different. But we're afraid of very specific things, and those things torture us. And therein lies the suffering. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Buddhist practice, very specifically, Chogyam Trungpa was a Tibetan Buddhist teacher. He uses the term groundlessness, but in essence, it's another way I think of saying fearlessness. Buddhist practice is 100% addressing overcoming fear and learning to be fearless. And understanding that we have this life, we are lit, we're alive, and we're going to die. All of us. No escaping that. And since we are, why waste any moments of this precious life being afraid and angry and sad and depressed and resentful? We have an incredible, beautiful life ahead of us if we choose that path.
And Taoism is a focus on self, right?
Taoism?
Yeah, but just in general, right? Isn't that in self, focus of self?
So I'm not a Taoist practitioner. Taoism, literally, Tao is the way, but I can't really speak to it. I mean, I know basics, but I can't speak to it. But to your comment, you said Taoism is focused on the self. Buddhism is also focused on the self.
Right.
So it's not a separation between the two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When Buddhism went into China, it really meshed with Taoism, Confucianism, and Shinto.
Okay, yeah.
So you have a mixture. Other questions?
I have a question about the self and the non-self. I have a belief that the non-self is a universe, and the self is us, or the I that experiences. How would you define the self and the non-self from that point of view?
Yeah, so the question on self and non-self, and for those who didn't hear virtually, you see the self as the I, and you see the non-self as the universe. For me personally, I don't connect so much. I mean, I'll answer this specifically, but I also don't connect so much when people say the universe. Like, what are you even freaking talking about? Like, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I say this every time people talk about, like, a gift from the universe. Like, what is this universe, like a thing? Like, what do you even mean when you say the universe? That sounds like a really big thing.
It's a concept.
Say again?
It's a concept.
Okay, so very specifically, coming back to Buddhist practice, which I know is a big part of your life and you understand very deeply, I would remove that idea from thinking self and non-self as anything to do with the universe. It doesn't, at least my understanding of self and non-self. The way you asked that almost sounded as if what you were getting towards was like there's the self and the I and the ego, and then the non-self, which is like surrendering everything and just letting the universe happen. And I don't get that. Self, to back up very briefly without getting too much into it for those who never heard this, the Buddhist teachings around non-self is talking about that there's no permanent self. Right? I'm just this physical body that was born. And then as I came out, my parents said, that's Jeff. And then they said, oh, these are fingers and these are legs and everything got assigned labels and names. And then I got to, school and everybody's telling me to think this and think that. And then we have all these experiences and you go through life and you have these friends and relationships and, you end up in some weird Buddhist temple. Like all these things just happen. And we define that as like, well, that's Jeff. That's not Jeff. Right? These are just experiences that this physical body and this consciousness have had. Right? And so when this body dies, without even getting into continuation of consciousness or rebirth, but when this body dies, that experience in this physical form is done. So the self is this idea that I'm saying it's all about Jeff and it's me and mine and permanent. Non-self to me is a recognition that the world isn't about me. But it doesn't mean that it's the universe. You ever made a decision that was really all about you? You didn't care about anybody else?
Daily.
Yes, thank you. I always love your honesty, right? So there you're wrapped up in the sense of self. And you ever made a decision that was equally, if not more, really about other people and not about you? I'm sure you've made those daily as well. That's more of non-self, where you're not really wrapped up in that kind of ego place. but they're both still you. The not you that's you. It's not that like you are gone and now it's the universe is non-self. You are still a physical form body going through this world. You know, Dogen would say, the Zen master, the 1200 to 1253, founder of the Soto Zen school, one of the two remaining kind of surviving schools of Zen. But he would say you have to get to know the self before you can get rid of the self. So you're getting to know your ego, your pride, your anger, your hatred, your joy, your happiness. You're getting to know that. And then you're working to where you just become this kind of consciousness going through the world, but still with this body. And more abiding in a non-self way, where it's not all about you. So, no answer, no question. Just more stuff to ponder. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
So would that come in line with being selfless?
I mean, I think it's one way to look at it, yes, this idea of being selfless. But I also want to caution people, especially early on in Buddhism, that often we can get wrapped up in this, like, oh, I'm going to be selfless as if we don't exist and we don't matter. Buddhist teachings around compassion, you know who we must have compassion for first? Ourselves. So if we're in such a hurry to be selfless, we're almost just kind of ignoring and suppressing and avoiding ourself that is actually hurting and afraid.
So it's kind of like practice being selfless on yourself before you could be selfless for others.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how
Oh, yeah, I do.
How good could I be if I'm not good to myself?
Correct. Yes. So it starts with that we call self-compassion, self-love. Starts with taking care of yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool. Huh? What else? Yeah.
So, if we're selfish in a sense, and we're too focused on the self, is it that we bring suffering onto ourselves? Or
So,
is that a product of?
are you asking very specifically if the selfishness brings suffering to you?
To an extent.
I think it just depends. I mean, I think there's, again, we're so, at least in the English language, we're so kind of accustomed to think that selfish is a bad thing and selfless is a good thing. And the deeper I get, I think, in practicing what the Buddha taught, again, going back to the Dogen quote, I don't like to look at selfish as bad and selfless as good. Like, it's not a scale, right? And I think that there are times in our lives, just very practically, that being selfish and taking care of yourself is beautiful. Yet we might somehow be conditioned because our society is so screwed up and we see like 18 social media posts that say one thing, that you need to go help people, that all of a sudden you want to do something for yourself and you feel like that's a shitty thing to do. Like, no, being selfish is taking care of self. But to your question, is being selfish like cause suffering? It just, if you're being selfish in a way that's really harming other people, then that's a different story. Does that make sense? And you know the difference between the two? I mean, not just sometimes yes, sometimes no, but that's really what we want to explore. Do we understand the difference in how our selfishness harms us and harms others, or how it benefits us and benefits others? For me, I mean, for so many years, I thought this practice was about selfless and get over your sense of self and you don't matter and all that kind of stuff. But, you're here too. And if you don't take care of yourself, then you're really going to suffer. And if you suffer, you can't help anybody. Right? The oxygen mask on the airplane. So, same idea. What else?
So the idea is to find like a balance between being selfless and selfish. Being selfish could be a good thing, meaning to take care of yourself or to look out for yourself, put the oxygen mask on first before you can help the person next to you. But then like practicing So it's kind of like meeting, like somewhere, like I would say, like a sliding scale, a spectrum. There would be a spectrum between selfishness and selflessness.
Yeah, I love people who are brand new to Buddhism and know nothing about it because they always understand it already. And then what's going to happen is the more you learn about it, then you're going to kind of conform to some box called Buddhism, and then that's going to ruin it. So you should really just stop now. But yes, it's called the middle path. It's finding a balance in everything in life. We often live on these extremes, you know, and so it's finding a balance. Yeah.
Thank you.
And don't stop this stuff. You need it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was asking.
Yeah. What else?
Happy late birthday.
Thanks.
Haven't been here in a while. Okay, so pretend you're a 14-year-old girl.
That's going to be tough.
Okay, I'll pretend I'm a 14-year-old girl and you're Buddha.
That's even harder. It'd be
Okay,
easier
we'll
to
make
be
it a
14.
semblance of
Actually,
Buddha. Okay, just pick Jeff.
just ask your question.
So when you're a 14-year-old girl and you don't want to hear rationale, logic, middle pathway, anything that comes along with that, what would a 14-year-old girl find soothing from the principles of course, be compassionate to yourself, don't be so hard on yourself. But in that mental state where a 14-year-old girl's not thinking straight, what would Buddha be able to do to comfort that situation?
So what fascinates me, go ahead, I'll let you
No, I
finish.
know that there's no like straight answer to it.
Oh no, there is a straight answer.
Pretending that you're a 14-year-old
No,
girl.
I usually don't have straight answers, but this time I do.
You're shocking me.
Yeah.
Love it.
You're asking a 50-year-old dude to pretend that he's a 14-year-old girl. You are a girl, correct?
And 50-year-old woman.
And were you at one point in time 14?
Of course I was.
So you should go there first. Did you listen to anything?
No, but I was constantly seeking comfort. My parents were very spiritual people. They weren't Catholic or Jewish or anything. They just were providing that. And so when I couldn't get it from them, I was seeking it. So that's what, I guess, to give a path of someone who's seeking that comfort where they might have it, but in that flash of the moment.
And is this a child of yours?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, and I don't
I
like...
guess the basis of my question is when there's no logic that prevails, how do you find comfort for that person and help bring that to them?
Yeah, I understand. No, I understand completely. And I've spent my life for the last 35 years working with 14-year-olds, probably since I was 16.
Maybe that's why I asked you
What
about being one.
But hang on. What I'm telling you is, you just have to love them. That's all you can do. You just love them. It's not about giving them the Buddhist answer, the spiritual answer, the path. 14-year-old kids are on their own journey as we are. And most 14-year-old kids don't listen to anything or anyone, and they're not, they don't understand. We're 50, we don't understand. Yet somehow we look back and we see 14-year-olds, we see, any family member, loved one suffering, and we want to help them, we want to fix them, we want to heal them. We have a heart breaks as you watch a 14-year-old daughter suffer, and you want to give her the answer and give her the solution. You just have to love them.
I'm doing that.
That's it.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't bring her much comfort.
Well,
Yeah.
but you can't force. You're trying to control her. No, hang on. I'm sitting here, you're sitting there. Let me play this out. You're trying to control her journey. I said just love them, and you said I am, and I said you're trying to control, and you said no, I'm not. I just want them. You can want her
Feel comfort.
I understand. This, you're not going to like this, but you know me well enough to know that I don't say things for people to like what I say. Right, Ross? What I want you, and you still come back. What I want you to understand is that you're trying to control her experience because you don't want her to suffer. Beautiful, you don't want her to suffer. Love her. That's all you can do. can't control her experience. She's going to have her experience. Do you show her love?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, I'm
Of course I
asking
do.
you.
Of course I do. I mean, that's why I'm here, is talking to you about this. Like,
Yes.
I love that you challenge, but when we are pushing to get challenged ourselves, like, I hope you appreciate that as much as we appreciate you challenging us.
Absolutely.
Of course I love her. Of course I'm
Yes.
with her. Of course I come here on Tuesdays to figure out how to give her comfort.
Right.
I'm not controlling her. I want to say,
No.
I wish that she could understand that suffering will pass. That's like a 14-year-old logic person's not going to listen to that.
Right there. Done. What did you just say? A 14-year-old kid is not going to listen to that. And when I say, I'm not saying you're trying to control her. You're trying to control the outcome. You just answered your question. You said, of course, a 14-year-old kid is not going to listen to logic.
Okay, so then one last question, I'll give it back to everyone, because I appreciate you challenging us and we challenge you. It's this reciprocal way of Buddhism, questioning the ether of the world.
Yeah.
So then theoretically, what you're telling me, or Buddha would be telling you, or
No, I'm not Buddha, first of all.
what I'm saying, Buddhism,
Yeah.
philosophies.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Is that then just to sit there and say nothing? It's just to
I didn't
allow
say
her
that.
So then what happens when she's in that mode? Just love her and just what would you say? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
I would listen. And I would love, I've spent 40 years working with teenagers who've been physically,
Okay, so once you get past
emotionally
the listening, then
abused.
what?
What I'm telling you is there's not always something you can do.
That was my last question. So that's what you're saying. Perfect.
Yeah, you just listen and you love them. 14-year-old kids don't understand logic the way a 50-year-old understands it. They have to go through the pain and suffering themselves to someday be 50 years old and looking back and doing the same thing to their 14-year-old.
Yeah, I always start from love, I guess.
You know, it's endless love, endless compassion for them. And listen, but there's not always an answer.
There you go. That's your answer to me. There's not always an answer. 5 minutes later.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I hope, nobody wants anyone to suffer. Nobody should suffer. 14 or 90 years old, nobody should suffer. But we do. And I think one of the hardest things for people to understand, I'm not even talking about this situation, one of the hardest things for people to understand is that we experience suffering. That first noble truth that the Buddha said, life is filled with suffering. And we often want to skip through that. We want to get over it. We want to move past it. And for me, so much of this practice has been embracing and being with that suffering and understanding that that suffering can and will pass. But it doesn't just disappear. It takes time. Other questions? Yeah.
Well, it's more like kind of what you just said really resonated with me because the way I was raised, my mom seeing a lot of suffering in me. There was nothing she could ever do, but like you said, just love me. And I just kind of realized how much love she's given me throughout my life just by listening to me. And it breaks her heart to see me going through situations and being hurt, not listening, or whatever. But at the end of the day, she always says she loves me. Her answering the phone is enough for me. So for you saying that means a lot. And I appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
really do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
How can you be with suffering? I know you can meditate and you can try to let the emotions come. You need to cry, you cry. But is it just how do you do that?
How do you be with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not much differently than how you be with any emotion. And I'm not even necessarily, like you said in your question, that you can meditate with it. Very often I think people think that if you're suffering, especially around Buddhism, people come to Buddhism and think, well, I'm going to meditate and make everything better. If you're suffering, if you're in tremendous emotional pain and you sit to do a meditation practice, you might feel worse.
Yes.
Because then what are you sitting with? All of that pain, right? So when I say be with suffering, first and foremost, what I want people to understand is that the first noble truth of suffering when you look at the second one, which is the cause, when we're with suffering, we want to understand, why is it there? And the suffering is there for us because the greed. We want more. We want different. We want things to change. So to be with it means, for me, first look at it, not in a meditation standpoint, but when we're suffering, when we're in that moment, we're experiencing pain and suffering. Look at the greed, meaning, did you want more? Did you want different? Look at the anger, the second cause of suffering. Are you upset at how it turned out? And the third one is the ignorance, which is you're ignoring reality and you're stuck in your views. So to be with suffering means for me to look at it. And then you kind of add on the Buddhist teachings of impermanence, which tells us it will go away. So very often when we're in suffering and we experience suffering, we immediately want to fix it, right? And we turn to anything. Right, go ahead. Food or whatever we turn to. But we're constantly experiencing suffering throughout our lives, large or small, and we have to, change the radio, change the channel, change the temperature, turn to food, to alcohol, to drugs. We constantly have to turn and escape. When I say be with suffering, what does it feel like? Get to know it. When you're happy, are you ever worried about being with happiness? You're cool with that, right? You're just living your life. I'm happy. So when you're suffering, to me, it's the same thing. I'm suffering right now. This sucks. Oh, this is sadness. This is not fun. This is anger. This is not fun. This is depression. This is not fun. I know these things very well, and they're not fun, but they're also not permanent. So when I say to be with it again, it's making friends with it and knowing it'll change. And another way to do it is to kind of be with it is to see what you can transform it into. But I don't necessarily recommend when you're angry and depressed to just sit quietly for 20 minutes. That's not usually my first recommendation. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. We'll go here and then we'll close.
So there's such a thing as being comfortable in the chaos, feeling comfortable in the suffering, and it's it's an old friend.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's part of the human experience. We're going to experience the rise and fall of emotions. And when we get stuck thinking that that's all there is, it gets really tough. But when we kind of open our mind and open our heart to the fact that anything beautiful can happen, and we surrender this idea of wanting the world to go exactly how we want it to go, and wanting everybody to do exactly what we want them to do, that's when we set that down for a little bit. It just makes life easier. And if you make life easier, then you can actually deal with things calmly and rationally, and not so emotionally. Again, back to my earlier comment about, dealing with things when you're angry. Usually don't come out too well. Yeah. So I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to Pam during her time of healing, and to Mark and their family and friends who suffer at this time. All right, thank you all for being here with Morgan. We'll do, before you all head out, a few announcements. Our Dharma Bum host, and as Morgan's coming up, tomorrow night we have a Tibetan Lama coming at 7 o'clock, so if you've never sat with Tibetan Lamas, they're really kind of cool and fun and funny. So he'll be here tomorrow at 7 o'clock, so everybody's welcome. Thanks, Morgan.
Hi everyone, my name is Morgan and I'm tonight's host. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and they are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction problems, and our food redistribution program meets every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and bring it back whenever you get done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out, and if a few people could stay to close and watch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.